Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Bobby. We have the same color on today.
I'm extremely colorblind, I'll be honest with you. So I'm going to take your word for it.
Well, you have red on, just so you know.
Thank you very much. Hey, I have a question. I was looking at some notes before we were coming on together, and I always love when you're on the show. You have a great podcast called Business Unusual, but you have this phone number that people can call and ask you questions, which is 888 Barbara. But
Yep.
what's the most asked question to you? Who is the guru of making money in business?
Probably where do I get the money to start is the most asked question, but it's not the most interesting. I got one yesterday from this crazy guy who said he was going to make me 9 feet tall and bring back the dinosaurs and we could sell them off at a huge profit. I get people who ask me, how do I leave my husband tomorrow? Not today, but tomorrow. How do I fire my mother? I get every kind of question in the world, but the most common is how do I get my hands on the money to get started?
And that's just get started with like a small business, right?
Absolutely. Or sometimes they have dreams of grandeur and they want to start with 700 employees. So you get your nut jobs there too.
So that would be a nut job, having a dream of a new business with 700 employees.
Yeah. Start big. And then if we have to scale back, we'll do it. We only need about $7-8 million from you to be my partner, please.
Before you got started and before you are what we know you for now as being wildly successful, and you had to start out, it was basically what, $1,000?
$1,000. Hey, that was worth probably 10,000 then. So it sounds like less than it really was.
So you have this $1,000, and what do you do, and how did you know to do it without the advice of somebody like yourself?
Well, I knew I only had the 1,000 and it was never going to happen again. So I figured out what I was going to have to pay to rent a phone for a month, what I'd have to pay to sublease the desk from the accountant that I subleased it from, what my cab fare would cost, and what a 3-line ad in the New York Times advertising one listing would cost. And that made me realize I had roughly 7 weeks to stay in business. So I went out of the gate like a gangbuster. No, I had 7 weeks to make my first deal. And as luck would have it, I made my first $340 rental in the very first week. So that extended my lifeline for 2 weeks and on and on and on it went. I was just running against the clock. There's a great advantage to being short on cash, man. Every nickel and dime you spend carefully. You're scared to death every minute. And that is the best formula for success. I think fear is a wonderful motivator.
Is it odd to you now at this point in your career and your level of success, because people like myself only see you as the wildly famous and wildly successful businesswoman and person on Shark Tank, but I have to imagine you inside your core still see the person that was just hustling and grinding so hard, wondering if you could ever make it happen. Isn't it weird that the perceptions we have upon ourselves, but how others see us as well?
It's not only weird, but everybody likes success. Everybody likes to see the finished product in anything. Nobody really wants the nuts and bolts of how to get there. But the most is to be learned, really, from looking at the nuts and the bolts of getting there, because that's the piece that everyone can identify with. That's the piece everyone can mimic and use to make themselves successful. So I love seeing the backstory on anybody who's successful. It's never, well, if you're a privileged kid and you inherit a ton of money, I guess you're successful from the start, but usually with those kids, never successful in their own mind.
Do you still feel like that person who's just starting out?
I do not, because I live in luxurious quarters. I have many vacation homes. I can pretty much buy anything I want short of a private jet or a yacht, my accountant tells me. So no, I don't feel poor, but do I feel ashamed when I open my closet and see how many beautiful outfits I have? I go to bed guilty every night. Swear to God. I think, how many people can this dress feed? And yet I buy the new dress because I need to look good on Shark Tank. So that's how I justify it. It's a business expense. I have to look good on Shark Tank.
If people are going to listen to your podcast, and again, we may have a lot of people now that didn't even know you had a podcast, which is, why you're on the show to promote this. What in the world do you do on Business Unusual that people could take for their normal lives?
I give honest advice, and people surprisingly on a hotline are ridiculously open, which I love. They will tell me their deepest, darkest secrets. They won't hide anything. I almost sometimes think I'm more soulful than their therapist, maybe because they're not paying and that helps a little bit. but they will get the truth out of me. And you know what I'm very good at doing is uncovering the fears that they're not looking straight in the face and kind of breaking it down for them and say how they get over it. You know, fear is a terrible thing. You live procrastinating on stuff, you know it, it stinks, it feels bad in your belly, but people see like go from A to Z, how do I get there? I'm good at breaking it down, like let's step A, B, and C, and that's enough. And by the time you get to D, you'll have your first success, because I really have seen that with people. People are surprisingly resilient and far more capable than they give themselves credit for.
With season 13 of Shark Tank, do you ever worry that you're just going to run out of finding new investments? I mean, listen, I've been on American Idol now for 4 seasons, and I'm like, I wonder if kids are ever going to stop being good singers. Like, I worry about this. Do you worry like we're just going to get a bunch of crap now?
No, I worry about, please, dear God, don't send me one more golf product going through those doors. You know, I worry about the repeat categories that I'm like, drinking cups. That's been a big one in the last few years. No, I don't worry about it, because people have the wackiest ideas, and some of the wackiest things have been the ones I've made the most money on. And so I'm always looking for that dark horse, like the thing that I'm not taking so seriously that becomes your big hit. So the surprise element is always there. I don't think we'll run out of stuff. No, too frequent a category visit, but not run out of stuff. Yeah.
What's the biggest and worst investment that you've made per Shark Tank that we've seen on this show?
Well, the worst investment I won't even name, because they sued me when they lost all their money, like I lost their money. So that's crazy. But that was a exercise product that went nowhere. Okay. That's all. I'll leave it at that. I'm afraid to talk about it. Honest God, I hate litigation. I hate hiring attorneys, whatever. Okay. But the most surprising and traumatic success I had was certainly with 2 guys that came in, very smart guys, filled with energy, no business experience. And they had this oversized blanket named Comfy that they said everybody was going to be crazy about. They didn't know where they'd make it. They didn't know what it costs. They didn't know how they'd sell it, but they knew the world was going to really be crazy about it. And of course, what happened is they've sold like crazy in the 4 years we've been together. No one saw that hit coming. And we've had over, I think, 80 million. 400 million. I always get the numbers. I have to look to somebody. I can't remember numbers. $400 million in sales. Who saw that coming? The Comfy, my biggest hit so far.
Do you carry cash on you?
$20 in my iPhone. I have a great iPhone with a strap on it, because I'm always losing. I'm old enough to not know where I ever put it. And I keep $20 at a credit card in the back pocket. And, you know, I could go through 2 weeks without spending that 20. Everything in New York is about credit card.
Do you have a secondary, like when you're rich and famous like you, do you have 2 phones, one for like the people that you kind of like and then one for the people you love?
No, because I can separate them out on who's texting, right? So that's not a problem. But I do have one phone that I'm constantly thinking of throwing in the Hudson River, because it's so constant, you can't get away from it. And I really do. I mean, you obviously need these instruments to survive and run your business. I run mine off my iPhone. But on another level, it takes a lot away from living in the present, I believe. I think it clutters the mind much more so. I used to be able to hop in a cab and think about the meeting I just went to, or the person I just visited, or who I want to ask for what, and reflect on things. Now I hop in a cab and I have to return 30 texts or emails. So I think it takes away the thought time and the ability to improve your decision making. I really do think so. And I like to get away from it, but it's a Pandora's box. You fall down that hole. Help. You don't know how the heck to get out of there.
I have 2 more questions for you. And by the way, you guys can call the phone number 1-888-BARBARA and leave her a question, and she will answer it on her podcast. Much like we have our number here, you can call and ask her about anything. You ever call people back? That'd be a fun one. If all of a sudden you actually call them at home.
Yes,
like,
I have. Yes,
you have?
Yes, of course I have. You have to realize sometimes I have a hard time getting them back, but when I get them, they do not believe it's me calling. I have the same voice, talking the same way. No, they say. Yes, I say. No, they say. Yes, I say. And so it takes a couple of minutes to break through, even after I'm calling them back. Yeah, it's kind of a funny experience.
The 2 questions I have for you, and Amy's daughter on the show is 14 years old, and they sent her a pamphlet at home, and they said, "Hey, what is your weakness?" And I think people are asked that in interviews sometimes. So if you're in a business situation or a job interview and they go, hey, so what's your biggest weakness? How would you answer that question?
Well, number one, most important thing is you never answer it honestly. Forget about the honest answer, because you don't want to disclose your biggest weakness. You want to choose a weakness that fits in with the job description. So, example, you're going to join a team, for example. You've already conjured up the idea that this company really believes in teammanship. Then you say, the problem is I don't enjoy doing projects by myself. A nice, safe weakness.
That's a
Good,
good
she's
one.
a girl for me.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a good one. How do you? Okay, the last question that I want to ask you, because as someone
You got a lot of questions there, Bobby Bones.
I guess what I do, because I'm also just so interested in you, and you're also a great guest. So pardon me for being so in love with the content you bring to my radio show, Ms. Corcoran.
Okay, I accept all that criticism and love and whatever you call it. Yeah.
I follow celebrities on Instagram, and they show off a lot of their wealth.
Mhm.
When you see someone doing that, do you go, they ain't near as rich as they seem, or they wouldn't be showing it off? Or how do you feel about a lot of the flexes on social media?
Honestly, they could be as rich as they say. They could be richer than they're even showing off. I think what that is, it's nothing more than a reflection of how insecure the individual is, how far they've traveled from their roots when they were worried about whatever money issues they had, and how far they've come personally in feeling comfortable with money.
So when you see that, you see insecurity.
I see a lack of authenticity because they're insecure. And I get it. I don't brag about stuff. That's not my thing, because my mother would come back from the grave and kill me. But I get insecurity. If you're any good at what you do, you are insecure or you don't improve. I mean, I wish I could be more secure, but my insecurity is what drives me. So I've learned to welcome it in on a good day. Other days I hate the insecurity's guts. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Her podcast is Business Unusual. You guys can call. It's the great thing about it. 888-BARBARA. And she's taking a lot more audience questions. She answers a lot. As you can see here, she answered 734 of my questions. Yes, that's what she said.
No, it wasn't quite that much. You
All
exactly.
questions. Barbara, thank you. Great to talk with you. Congratulations on the success of the podcast. Obviously, you're massively successful everywhere. So it's just a pleasure to spend some time with you.
And thank you for wearing my outfit. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. See you later.
This is a Bobby Bones show.